Escape in the shadows. The alarm bell echoed through the market, sharp and cold. Metal shutters began to close, sealing exits, while hunters armed with blades and shock rifles rushed in from every corner. The crowd scattered, some shouting, some laughing at the thought of blood soon to come. The human grabbed the girl's chained wrist and pulled her into the nearest alley. Her bare feet stumbled over rough stone, but he didn't slow down. His eyes scanned every corner, every shadow, searching for a way out. "They're coming," she whispered, her voice breaking. "They won't stop until they take me back." "Not if I get you out first," he said firmly. His voice had no fear, only focus. Behind them, heavy boots slammed against the ground. The hunters had split into groups, spreading through the alleys like wolves. The sound of growls and laughter filled the night. The girl's chains rattled with every step, loud enough to betray them. The human cursed under his breath. He dragged her into a narrow passage between two broken walls. "Hold still." He raised his pistol, firing at the lock on her ankle chain. Sparks flew, metal glowed red, but the chain refused to break. The girl winced at the heat. "Leave me," she whispered, shaking her head. "You'll die because of me." He looked at her sharply, his eyes burning. "Not a chance." The noise of hunters grew closer, their voices carried through the darkness. "Find the human. Bring the animal back alive." The human grabbed the chain and wrapped it around his arm. "Then we'll run with it," he muttered. He pulled her forward again. They slipped through another street, this one littered with broken crates and half-burned lamps. Shadows danced across the walls. Suddenly a hunter leapt from the darkness, blade raised. The girl cried out, but before the strike could land, the human fired. The pulse blast threw the alien backward into the wall, smoke rising from his chest plate. "Keep moving," the human barked. The girl's heart pounded. She had seen hunters kill slaves in seconds, but now, for the first time, she saw one fall instead. The human didn't slow, didn't look back. He kept pulling her toward the faint glow of the city's outer gates. But the hunters were clever. More shadows shifted ahead. They blocked the path, eyes glinting like predators. The human ducked into another side alley, one so narrow the walls scraped his shoulders. Trash and broken metal cluttered the ground. The girl stumbled again, nearly falling. He lifted her up in his arms without stopping, carrying her like she weighed nothing. Her chains clinked against his chest, but his steps stayed steady. Her voice trembled. "Why do you fight for me?" He didn't look down. "Because you asked me to take you home." Her throat tightened, tears stinging her eyes. No one had ever listened before. No one had ever cared. They reached a small door hidden behind broken planks. The human kicked it open and stepped inside. Darkness swallowed them. The room smelled of rust and old oil, a forgotten storage space. He closed the door quickly, pressing his back against it. Outside, hunters rushed past, their footsteps fading for now. Silence filled the room. Only the girl's heavy breaths and the faint hum of the pistol remained. The human finally lowered her to the ground. "We'll wait here until they pass," he whispered. She stared at him in the dim light, her voice soft. "You could have left me, but you didn't." He finally met her eyes. "I don't leave people in chains." For the first time since she could remember, she believed someone meant those words, but far away the hunter's horn sounded again, calling the pack together. The chase was not over. The shadows outside still waited, and freedom was only just beginning. The hidden cabin. The hunter's horn still echoed in the night, but the human kept moving, guiding the girl through forgotten paths. He knew the alleys well. He had walked them many times before. Few dared to wander this far into the old district where broken lights flickered and the smell of rust filled the air. The girl's chains dragged across the ground, each step heavy, each breath tight. She wanted to ask him again why he risked so much for her, but her voice caught in her throat. No words came out. She simply followed, clinging to the warmth of his hand. Finally, They reached a crumbling building at the edge of the district. It looked like nothing more than ruins. Half the roof gone, windows shattered, door hanging loose. To anyone else, it was just another dead place. But the human pushed the door open with steady hands and let her inside. The room was dark, but he tapped a small switch on the wall. Old lamps buzzed, spreading a dim yellow glow. The air was dusty but not rotten. There were blankets stacked in a corner, shelves with food packs, and even a small heater humming softly. It wasn't much, but compared to the cages she had lived in, it felt like another world. The human motioned for her to sit on a blanket. She lowered herself carefully, the chains clinking. He crouched beside her, pulling a small kit from his coat. "Let me see your wrists," he said quietly. Her eyes widened in surprise. "Why?" "So I can clean the wounds," he replied simply. For a long moment she hesitated. No one had ever asked her permission before. Finally she held out her wrists. The skin was raw where the metal had bitten deep. The human worked gently, applying salve and wrapping strips of cloth around them. His touch was careful, almost respectful. The girl blinked hard, fighting tears. "You treat me like I'm not broken." "You're not," he said firmly, not looking up. The heater's warmth filled the room, soft and steady. For the first time in years, she felt something other than fear. Safety. When he was done, he opened a food pack and handed it to her. "Eat." Her hands shook as she held it. The scent of real food hit her, and her stomach tightened with hunger. Slowly she began to eat, each bite small, as if she feared it might be taken away. The human leaned back against the wall, watching her silently. After a while, she lifted her head. "Why here? Why save me?" He looked at her then, his eyes calm but serious. "Because when you looked at me, you didn't ask for survival. You asked for home, and I couldn't walk away from that." Her breath caught. The word, home, felt foreign, almost too heavy to speak. But deep inside, something stirred. Before she could answer, a sound cut through the air. A faint crunch outside the broken wall. Footsteps. The human's hand went to his pistol instantly. He stood, moving silently toward the door. The girl's heart raced. She pulled the blanket tighter around herself, chains rattling softly. Shadows moved just beyond the cracks in the wall. She heard voices, low, rough, and close. "Tracks lead here. He can't hide forever." Her stomach tightened with fear. The hunters had found them. The human returned to her side, whispering, "Stay quiet. Don't move." His eyes were sharp, his voice steady, but his hand pressed firmly on the weapon. The girl's eyes locked on his. For the first time in her life, she wanted to believe that maybe someone could protect her. But outside, the footsteps grew louder, closer. The hunters were only seconds away. The auction of chains. The market was loud, filled with the voices of traders and buyers. Bright lights flashed above cages, each one holding a creature that had been caught, chained, and stripped of dignity. Some cages rattled as the slaves inside begged for freedom, while others sat in silence, eyes empty of hope. The air was thick with smoke, sweat, and the sharp smell of fear. Among them, one cage stood out, not because it was larger or brighter, but because of what was written on the sign above it. In bold alien letters it said, "Pleasure Animal." Inside that cage sat a girl, her wrists locked in heavy iron cuffs, her ankles chained to the floor. Her skin carried faint lines of bruises, and her hair hung loose like tangled threads. But her eyes were not broken. A human stood in the crowd, his coat pulled close to hide his face. He had walked through this alien marketplace many times before, but today something felt different. He heard the laughter of bidders, the cruel jokes, the clinking of coins. Then his eyes fell on her. For a moment the noise around him faded, and all he could hear was the sound of his own heartbeat. The auctioneer, a thick-bodied alien with a booming voice, raised his arms. Next item, rare, exotic, and trained to obey, a perfect pleasure animal. The crowd roared with laughter, and whistles, some lifting their hands ready to bid. The girl did not speak. She only lowered her head, hiding her face behind her hair. But when the auctioneer pulled her up harshly by the chain, forcing her to stand, her eyes suddenly looked forward, straight into the humans. It was only for a second, but it felt like the world stopped. Her lips moved, silent at first. Then she whispered, "Take me home." The human froze. He was sure no one else had heard. Her voice was soft, but it carried a weight that struck deep inside him. It wasn't a plea for comfort. It wasn't even fear. It was something different, something stronger. The auctioneer laughed, shaking her by the chain. "See? Even broken animals can look pretty when they're desperate." The crowd howled with amusement, throwing numbers into the air. The price rose quickly, but the human's mind was no longer on the auction. He couldn't forget the way she had looked at him. Not as a beast begging for mercy, but as someone demanding to be seen. He stepped forward before he even realized what he was doing. "I'll take her," he said firmly. His voice cut through, the noise like a blade. The crowd went silent for a moment, then laughter erupted. "A human wants the animal?" One alien jeered. "He must be sick," shouted another. Coins clattered as bets were made, not for the girl, but against the humans. Pride. The auctioneer squinted at him. "Do you even have the credits, human, or are you just here to make a fool of yourself?" The human didn't answer the insult. He only kept his eyes on the girl, who now watched him closely. For the first time, her lips curved into something that almost looked like hope. "Yes," he said. "I'll pay whatever it takes." The auctioneer slammed his fist against the podium, then "Pay up and take your pet." Chains rattled as the girl was shoved forward. The guards dragged her out of the cage, but her gaze never left the human. The crowd still laughed, but their voices blurred. For the human, there was only her voice echoing in his head, soft and unshaken. "Take me home." And in that moment, he knew this was not just a purchase, it was the beginning of something far more dangerous. The human stand. The crowd did not stop laughing. Even after the human paid the credits, the alien still mocked him. To them, he was a fool who had wasted good money on something broken. Voices rose around him. "Humans are weak," one alien shouted. "Look at him! Thinks he can save an animal!" Another sneered. The guards shoved the girl forward. Her steps were slow, her chains heavy. She stumbled, but the human caught her before she fell. The touch surprised her. For years, hands had only pushed or struck her. This one held her steady, as if she was not a thing but someone. The auctioneer leaned close to the human, his sharp teeth flashing. "Take her and go, human, before the crowd decides you're more interesting than the slave." But it was already too late. Several aliens stepped into his path, their eyes glowing with greed. "You overpaid," one hissed. "Why not share her? Humans don't last long here anyway." Another pulled out a blade, tapping it against his palm. "Sell her to us instead. We'll pay double." The girl's breath caught. Fear spread across her face. She whispered so only he could hear. "They won't let us leave." The human tightened his grip on her arm. His other hand slid inside his coat, where a small concealed weapon rested. He had never wanted to draw it here, not in a market crawling with guards and hunters. But the way the aliens closed in told him he had no choice. He straightened his back, his voice steady. "She's mine now, paid in full. Step aside." The crowd roared with laughter again. One alien, tall and armored, leaned closer. "Do you think your words mean anything here, human? This market does not follow your rules. We take what we want." For a moment, silence spread between them. The girl's chains rattled as she trembled. Then the human pulled his hand free, and in it was a pulse pistol. Small, but charged. He pointed it at the armored alien's chest. The laughter stopped. The human's voice was low but clear. "Try to take her, and you'll find out if I know how to use this." The crowd froze. Some gasped, others stepped back. No one expected a human to stand tall in the middle of their pit. The guards looked uncertain, waiting for orders. Even the auctioneer's grin faltered. The girl's eyes widened. She had seen many slaves sold before. None had anyone fight for them, none had anyone stand like this. In her chest, a strange warmth stirred, something she had almost forgotten existed. Hope. The armored alien snarled, "You won't get far, human. She belongs to this market. Run and we'll hunt you both down." The human didn't blink. "Then you'll have to catch me," he said. With one sudden movement, he yanked the girl close and pushed through the gap in the crowd. The pistol stayed steady in his hand, daring anyone to step forward. Whispers followed them, but no one attacked. Not yet. As they reached the edge of the market, the girl spoke again, her voice shaking. "Why? Why risk yourself for me?" The human looked at her, his jaw set. "Because you're not an animal, and you don't belong in chains." Her lips parted, stunned. No one had ever said such words to her. Behind them, angry shouts erupted. The hunters had decided the chase was worth it. Alarms rang out, boots pounded against metal floors. The escape was only beginning. But for the first time, she did not feel like prey. With the human at her side, she felt like maybe, just maybe, freedom was real. Hunters arrive. The cabin walls shook as boots crunched against the ground outside. The girl's breath came fast, her chains trembling with every small movement. She pulled the blanket around herself as if it could hide her, but she knew it couldn't. The hunters had found them. The human crouched near the doorway, pistol raised, eyes sharp. He counted the shadows moving outside. At least 3. No, 4 hunters. Their voices carried through the cracks. "He's inside. Don't damage the girl. The market wants her back." "The human? Doesn't matter if he lives or dies." The girl flinched at those words, her stomach twisting. She was still property in their eyes. Nothing had changed, except for the man standing in front of her. The human leaned close, whispering, "Stay behind me, no matter what." Her lips trembled, but she nodded. The door burst open with a crash. 4 hunters stormed inside, tall and armored, weapons gleaming in the dim light. Their eyes glowed, scanning the room. "There," one growled, pointing at the girl. The human didn't hesitate. His pistol fired, blue light cracking across the cabin. The first hunter dropped, armor smoking where the blast struck. The others roared in anger, blades snapping forward. The fight exploded. The small room filled with sparks and shadows. The human moved fast, ducking low, firing again. Another hunter stumbled back, his weapon clattering to the floor. But the third swung his blade hard, sparks flying as it scraped the wall where the human had stood a heartbeat before. The girl gasped, pressing herself against the corner. Her chains rattled loudly, echoing through the chaos. One hunter's gaze snapped to her. His lips curled into a cruel smile. "Got you." He lunged, but before his blade could reach her, the human shoved him back with a brutal strike. The pistol fired point blank. The alien collapsed, smoke rising from his chest. The last hunter hesitated, eyes narrowing. He looked at the 3 bodies around him, then at the human still standing firm, pistol steady, breath sharp but unbroken. "You'll regret this, human," the hunter spat. "The market never forgets. They'll put a price on your head higher than hers. Then I'll make them work for it," the human said coldly. The hunter snarled but backed toward the door. He vanished into the shadows, footsteps fading fast. Silence fell inside the cabin. Only the heater's faint hum remained. The human lowered his pistol, shoulders heavy but steady. The girl stared at him, eyes wide, hands trembling. She had seen hunters kill slaves with ease. She had never seen anyone stand against them, never seen anyone fight for her. He turned to her, crouching low. "You okay?" Her throat felt tight, words tangled. Finally, she whispered, "Why? Why risk so much?" His eyes softened, but his voice stayed firm. "Because you're not an animal, and I won't let them treat you like one." Her breath caught. The words hit deeper than any chain ever had. She lowered her gaze, tears slipping down her cheeks. For the first time, not from pain, but from something she barely remembered. Hope. The human stood again, moving quickly. He began dragging the hunters' bodies toward the door, clearing space. "We can't stay here," he said. "They'll send more." She clutched the blanket, staring at him. For so long she had been nothing but a slave, but now she wondered, could freedom truly exist? The sound of distant horns echoed again, answering her question. The market would not let them go so easily. The human reloaded his pistol, jaw tight. "Time to move," he said, and for the first time she rose to her feet. Not because she was ordered, but because she wanted to. The choice of freedom. The night was quiet when they left the cabin, but it was not peaceful. The silence felt heavy, filled with the promise of danger. The human guided the girl through broken streets and dark alleys until the city lights faded behind them. Only the open plain stretched ahead, wide and endless under the pale moons. The girl's chains dragged softly against the dirt. She no longer stumbled. Her steps were weak but steady. Every time she looked at the human, her chest tightened. He had fought hunters, risked his life, and still walked beside her without regret. They stopped at a ridge overlooking the distant hills. A faint breeze carried the smell of dry grass. The human lowered his pack, scanning the horizon. "We'll rest here," he said. The girl sank onto the ground, hugging her knees. For a moment they sat in silence, the stars bright above. Then she whispered, "You know they'll never stop, right? They'll hunt us forever." He nodded. "I know." "Then why?" Her voice cracked. "Why not just leave me? I was nothing to them. I'll always be nothing." He turned toward her, his gaze steady. "You're not nothing. You never were. You just needed someone to see it." Her lips trembled. The words felt like fire inside her chest, burning away the cold. But fear still lingered. "What if I slow you down? What if you die because of me?" The human reached into his coat and pulled out a small device. With a flick, he unlocked the chain at her wrists. The cuffs clattered onto the dirt. He repeated, the same for her ankles, breaking each lock one by one until no iron remained on her. She stared at her bare skin, free for the first time in years. Her breath caught. Why would you do that?" "Because you're free now," he said, softly. "And freedom means choice." Her heart raced. He was giving her what no one else ever had, power over her own life. He stood, pointing toward the horizon. "If you want, you can go. Run as far as you can. Choose your own path. No one will chain you again." The girl's throat tightened. For years she had dreamed of freedom, of escape, of walking into the stars. Now it was here, real, and yet her feet did not move. She looked at him, the man who had fought for her, who had treated her with dignity when no one else had. She thought of his steady hands, his sharp eyes, his words that cut through her chains deeper than any key. Her voice shook. "And if I don't run?" He met her gaze, calm and patient. "Then you stay. By choice, not by chains." Tears spilled down her cheeks. She rose slowly, the night wind brushing against her skin where the cuffs had once bitten deep. Step by step, she walked toward him until she stood so close she could see the tired lines in his face, the faint scars on his hands. "I don't want to run anymore," she whispered. "Not alone." His chest rose and fell, and for the first time, his lips curved into the smallest smile. "Then don't." She closed her eyes, letting the words sink deep. For the first time, her future was her own, but in the distance, lights flickered against the dark sky, ships rising from the city. The hunters were not done. The human looked toward them, pistol ready again. "Then we fight, together." The girl lifted her chin, no longer trembling. For the first time in her life, she chose to stand. A home of her own. The night sky glowed with streaks of light as the hunters' ships spread across the horizon. Engines roared, beams cut through the clouds, and the ground trembled under their weight. The human tightened his grip on the pistol, his eyes cold and sharp. The girl stood beside him, no longer chained, her wrists bare in the moonlight. Fear still lived in her heart, but it no longer ruled her. For the first time, she felt something stronger. Courage. "They're coming," she whispered. "They always will. the human replied. But that doesn't mean we stop moving. The hunters swept across the plains, their shadows stretching long. The human fired into the night, each blast a warning. They ducked into the tall grass, using the land to hide their path. Step by step they pushed forward, the sound of pursuit never far behind. Hours passed like minutes, until at last the lights of the hunters faded into the distance. The night grew still again, and the stars returned, clear and endless. The girl collapsed to her knees, exhausted. Her breath came in sharp gasps, but when she looked up, her lips curved into something she hadn't felt in years, a smile. "We're alive," she whispered. The human crouched beside her, his voice steady. "Alive isn't enough, you deserve more than running." Her eyes widened. "More?" He pointed toward the horizon. Faint lights shimmered far away, a small settlement, hidden at the edge of the plains. Smoke curled softly from chimneys, and the glow of campfires flickered in the dark. "It's not much," he said, "but it's safe. A place where no one will call you an animal. A place where you can live as you choose." Her heart pounded. She stared at the settlement, her mind spinning. A home, a real home. Not a cage, not a market, not a hiding place. A place she could belong. She turned back to him, her voice trembling. "And you? Will you stay?" He met her gaze, silent for a moment. "If you'll have me." Her lips parted, breath catching. For so long, no one had asked her what she wanted. Her choices had been stolen, her life decided by others. Now the power rested in her hands. Tears blurred her vision, but she nodded. "Then stay." They walked the final miles together. The settlement came closer, the smell of firewood and food drifting through the air. People moved in the distance. Ordinary lives, ordinary peace. The girl's steps grew lighter, her chains gone, her spirit no longer bowed. At the edge of the village, she stopped. The human looked at her, waiting. Her voice was soft but steady. "I never thought I'd say this again, but this feels like home." His lips curved into a rare smile. "Then welcome home." The villagers turned curious eyes toward them, but no one jeered, no one mocked. The girl felt their stares, but she didn't shrink away. She stood tall, her shoulders straight, her heart steady. Inside her chest, something long buried began to bloom. She wasn't a slave. She wasn't an animal. She was herself. The human placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "This isn't the end," he said. "It's the beginning." She looked at him, then at the stars above. For the first time in years, the future did not feel like a chain. It felt wide open and hers to walk. The hunters might return someday. The galaxy might still be cruel. But she knew one truth now. She was free, and she had someone who saw her not as property but as a person, and that was enough to build a life, enough to call it home. Shadows of the future. The village lights glowed warmly through the night, a picture of peace in a galaxy full of cruelty. For the first time, the girl slept without chains around her wrists. She lay on a soft bed, a blanket pulled gently over her shoulders. The human sat near the window, awake, his pistol resting across his lap. Morning came slowly. The sound of children laughing outside carried into the room. The girl stirred, opening her eyes to the sunlight streaming through cracked wooden shutters. For a moment she thought it was a dream, that someone would burst in and drag her back to the cages, but when she touched her bare wrists, she felt nothing but skin. She turned to him. "You stayed awake all night." He shrugged. "Old habits." Her voice softened. "You didn't have to." "Yes, I did," he said simply. They ate together, food offered by kind villagers who asked no questions. Every bite tasted strange to her, strange because it was given freely, not thrown like scraps. She found herself smiling without meaning to, and the human noticed but didn't speak. But peace was fragile. Later that day, a trader arrived at the village with a warning. He whispered to the elders, who passed nervous glances. The girl caught pieces of the words: bounty, market, human. Her stomach sank. When the human returned to their room, she was waiting. "They know," she whispered. "They put a price on you." He nodded. "I expected that." Her voice shook. "You saved me, but now they'll hunt you. Because of me." He stepped closer, his eyes steady. "Listen to me. I chose this. Every step, every fight, every risk. I chose it. Don't carry the weight of my choice." Tears welled in her eyes. "But what if they find us?" He looked out the window toward the horizon. "Then we fight, or we run, together." She swallowed hard, her fear mixing with something new. Strength. "I don't want to run anymore. Not from them, not from my past." His gaze shifted back to her, measuring, searching. Then he nodded slowly. "Then we stand." That night, the village gathered around a fire. The human and the girl sat among them. For the first time, she told her story. Not as a slave, not as an animal, but as someone who had survived. The villagers listened in silence, their faces lit by the firelight. Some cried, others clenched their fists. When she finished, there was no laughter, no mockery, only respect. One elder rose and placed a hand on her shoulder. "No chains here," he said. "You are one of us now." Her chest ached, but it was not from pain. It was from belonging. Later, as the fire dimmed and the stars spread wide, she looked at the human. "All my life I thought freedom meant being alone. But now I know. It means having someone who sees me as I am." He met her eyes, quiet but firm. "And I see you." For a long time, they sat in silence, watching the flames die. The night was peaceful, but both knew peace was only borrowed time. Somewhere out there, hunters sharpened their blades and the market counted its losses. But for now, under the stars, she had a home. And beside her, she had someone who would never let her fall back into chains. The future was uncertain, dangerous, and dark. But as long as they walked it together, it no longer frightened her. The bounty's shadow. The days in the village passed quietly, almost too quietly. The girl helped with small chores, carrying water, sweeping floors, learning to cook real meals instead of scraps. Each simple act felt strange and beautiful, like discovering a new world. She laughed for the first time in years, and sometimes she caught the human watching her, though he never said a word. But peace had a way of breaking when you least expected it. One afternoon, a caravan of merchants arrived. Their wagons were piled high with goods, fabrics, and metals. The villagers gathered to trade, voices cheerful. But when the girl walked among them, she noticed how two strangers froze upon seeing her. Their eyes narrowed, scanning her face. Then her bare wrists where chains had once been. They whispered quickly to each other, then slipped into the crowd. Her stomach twisted. She hurried back to the human, who was sharpening a blade outside their small hut. "They saw me," she whispered. "The merchants, they knew." He looked up, calm but serious. "Describe them," she told him, and his jaw tightened. "Scouts," he said. "They're not traitors. They're bounty trackers." Her chest tightened with fear. "What do we do?" "We don't wait," he replied. He strapped on his pistol and stood. "We leave before nightfall. The bounty has reached farther than I thought." She shook her head, tears burning her eyes. "Everywhere we go, they'll follow. I don't want to run forever." He paused, looking at her. "Then what do you want?" Her answer came slowly, but steady. "I want to fight. Not just for me, for others like me, for everyone still in chains." The human studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Then we'll fight. But first we need to live long enough to choose the battlefield." That night they slipped away from the village. The people begged them to stay, promising to hide them. But the human refused. If the hunters come, they'll burn this place. Down to find us, he said. I won't let them pay the price for me. The villagers gave them food, blankets, and quiet blessings. The girl hugged an elder tightly, whispering, "Thank you for letting me feel human again." They left under the stars, the road stretching into darkness. The girl walked beside the human, her steps strong despite the fear clawing at her heart. She looked at him and whispered, "Where now?" "Somewhere they don't expect us," he said, "and somewhere we can strike back." But even as he spoke, a distant roar echoed across the plains. A ship, low and fast, sweeping the skies with searchlights. "They're closer than I thought," the human muttered. He grabbed her hand, pulling her into the tall grass. They dropped low, the earth cold against their bodies. The lights passed overhead, slow and searching. For a moment, she thought they would be caught. Her heart pounded so loud she was sure the hunters could hear it. But the ship moved on, its engines fading into the night. She let out a shaky breath. "They won't stop. Not until you're dead and I'm back in chains." The human turned his head, his eyes hard but calm. "Then we make them regret ever putting chains on you." Her lips parted. His words were not just a promise. They were a war cry. As the night swallowed them again, she felt it deep inside. The story was no longer about escape. It was about defiance. The market had taken her past, but together they would decide her future. And this time, she would not hide from the shadow of the bounty. She would rise against it. Fire against the Yank market. The plains stretched endless beneath the stars, but the human knew they could not keep running. Each day the bounty hunters drew closer. Each night their ships circled above like predators waiting for the right moment. Sooner or later they would be caught, unless something changed. The girl walked beside him, her eyes sharp now, no longer the hollow gaze of a slave. "We can't just run forever," she said, her voice steady. "We need to strike back." He studied her, silent for a moment. Then he nodded. "You're right. We'll have to hit them before they hit us." They traveled by night, avoiding patrols until they reached the edge of a ruined city. Towers half broken leaned against the sky, windows shattered, streets littered with rusted machines. It was a place long abandoned after war, but not empty. In the shadows of the ruins lived others. Runaways, broken fighters, escaped slaves. Their eyes followed the human and the girl as they entered the wreckage. Weapons glimmered in the dark, but no one attacked. These people were survivors, too tired to trust, too stubborn to die. The girl stepped forward, lifting her voice. "We know you hide here because the market hunts you. But if we keep hiding, they'll come for us one by one. We need to fight them together." The survivors stirred, murmurs running through the crowd. Some scoffed, some looked away, but a few leaned closer, listening. The human added, "They think we're weak because we run. They think chains make us animals. Let's show them they were wrong." A silence hung heavy. Then, slowly, one scarred alien stepped forward, his voice gravelly. "What do you propose, human?" The human pulled out a map, its corners frayed. He pointed at a circle marked in red. "A supply outpost. The market stores weapons there before moving them to the city. Guarded, but not like the main base. If we strike fast, we can take what we need and burn the rest." The girl's eyes burned with fire. "We don't just run anymore. We take back what they stole." That night, under the ruined towers, a plan was made. Old rifles were cleaned, blades sharpened, courage gathered. For the first time, the survivors looked less like broken shadows and more like fighters waiting for their moment. When dawn broke, they moved. The supply outpost sat in a canyon, its walls guarded by turrets and watchtowers. The hunters lounged, at the gates laughing, certain no one would dare challenge them. They were wrong. The first blast shook the air as the human fired from the ridge, his shot tearing through a turret. Alarms screamed, lights flared, and chaos erupted. Survivors charged from the shadows, their voices rising in defiance. The girl ran with them, No chains on her wrists, only fire in her eyes. She fought with a stolen blade, her strikes sharp, her heart steady. For every lash she had suffered, she cut back twice as hard. The hunters were strong but not prepared for unity. One by one they fell. Explosions ripped through supply crates, flames rising high. The canyon echoed with the sound of freedom breaking its silence. By the time the sun rose fully, the outpost was ash. Weapons lay in new hands, and the market had suffered its first wound. The survivors stood together, breathing hard, smoke curling around them. The girl looked at the human, her chest heaving. "We did it," she whispered. He nodded, his voice calm but grim. "This is only the beginning. Now they'll know we're not prey anymore." The girl raised her chin, her voice steady. "Then let them come. This time we fight back." And in the flames of the burning outpost, the first spark of rebellion was lit.